The great throne room of Nexus Prime shook as another explosion rocked the planet's surface. Supreme Chancellor Vexithera gripped the edges of his command chair, his 6 eyes fixed on the holographic display that showed the collapse of everything he had known. Red warning lights blinked across thousands of star systems. The galactic hegemony, which had ruled for 3,000 years, was falling apart. "How many more worlds have we lost?" Vexithara asked his aide. 47 systems in the last week, my lord. The humans are moving faster than we predicted." Vexithara's claws scraped against the metal armrest. Humans, those weak, pink creatures that the hegemony had conquered 150 years ago. They had been perfect slaves, smart enough to follow orders but stupid enough to never question them, or so everyone had thought. The trouble had started 6 months ago when the elite fleets returned from the Rim worlds. Half of them never came back at all. The survivors spoke of something they called void wraiths, creatures that ate entire star systems. The military leaders had laughed at first. Nothing could destroy a hegemony battle fleet. But the reports kept coming. Then the refugees started arriving. Billions of aliens fled toward the core worlds, telling stories of darkness that consumed everything in its path. The outer territories were abandoned. Panic spread through the Empire like wildfire, and in that chaos, the humans struck. Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood on the bridge of his captured battleship, watching New Seoul burn. Not with fire and destruction, but with celebration. The human colonists poured into the streets, tearing down hegemony banners and raising their own flags. It had taken only 6 hours to liberate the planet. "Sir, we're getting reports from the other strike teams," said Commander Yoon Ji-woo, walking up beside him. "Busan Colony is free. Incheon Station has surrendered. The garrison at Seoul Prime never even fought back." Kim nodded but didn't smile. Each victory felt good, but he knew the real war was just beginning. The humans had been planning this uprising for decades. They had waited for the perfect moment when the hegemony was weak and distracted. Now that moment had come. "What's our ship count?" Kim asked. 230 vessels, sir. Most of them are captured hegemony ships, but we've been upgrading them with our modifications." Kim turned to look at Yoon. She was young, maybe 30 years old, but she had the eyes of someone who had seen too much war. Most of the human military leaders were like that. They had grown up under hegemony rule, watching their people used as soldiers in wars they didn't understand. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," Kim said. "We move to the Kepler sector next. Intelligence says there's a major hegemony supply depot there." "Yes, sir." "Sir, there's something else. We've been picking up strange transmissions from the Rim worlds. The signal is weak, but it's definitely human origin." Kim raised an eyebrow. "Human? That's impossible. There are no human settlements in the Rim territories." "That's what we thought too, sir." Across the galaxy, Dr. Park Somi studied the alien corpse on her laboratory table. The creature had been found floating in space near one of the abandoned Rim worlds. Its body was twisted and changed, as if something had rewritten its DNA from the inside out. "The cellular structure is completely altered," she said to her assistant. "This isn't just death, this is transformation." Park had been studying hegemony biology for years, trying to find weaknesses that humans could exploit. She was one of the best xenobiologists in the Resistance, but she had never seen anything like this. "Doctor, look at this," her assistant called from across the lab. "I found something in the creature's neural tissue." Park walked over to examine the microscopic sample. What she saw made her blood run cold. Tiny machines, smaller than viruses, were embedded throughout the creature's brain. They were still active, still working to change the host's body. "These aren't natural," Park whispered. "Someone made these." The implications hit her immediately. The void wraiths weren't some unknown alien species from beyond the galaxy. They were a weapon, and if the pattern of infection was spreading toward the core worlds, every living being in the galaxy was in danger. Captain Lee Tae-jin piloted his fighter through the asteroid field, following the encrypted signal that had led them here. His ship was a modified hegemony interceptor, fast and deadly, but he felt exposed flying alone through the debris. "Control, this is Hunter 1, he said into his comm. I'm approaching the signal source. Copy that, Hunter 1. What do you see? Lee's eyes widened as he cleared the last asteroid. Hidden in the shadow of a small moon was a massive structure. It looked like a space station, but the design was unlike anything the hegemony had ever built. The hull was smooth and dark, with strange markings that seemed to glow with their own light. Control, you're not going to believe this. I'm looking at what appears to be a human facility. Repeat, this is definitely human construction. That's impossible, Hunter 1. There are no human settlements in that sector. I'm telling you what I see. And Control, there are ships docked here. Big ones. They don't match any known hegemony designs. As Lee watched, one of the strange ships began to move. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of a hegemony battleship. Its hull was a dark, gray color that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Weapon ports along its sides glowed with a blue energy that Lee had never seen before. Hunter 1, get out of there now, came the panicked voice from Control. That ship is powering weapons. But the massive vessel didn't fire. Instead, it opened a communication channel. The voice that came through was speaking perfect Korean. Attention, hegemony vessel. You are in violation of quarantine protocols. Identify yourself immediately, or you will be destroyed. Lee's heart pounded. A human voice speaking with authority he had never heard from any resistance fighter. This is Captain Lee Tae-jin of the Human Liberation Fleet. Who are you? There was a long pause. Then the voice came back, softer now. Captain Lee, this is Admiral Song Hee-jin of the Terran Defense Force. Stand by for escort to Docking Bay 7. Welcome to Prometheus Station. As Lee's fighter was guided into the alien station, he realized that everything the Resistance thought they knew about humanity's situation was wrong. They weren't just fighting to free themselves from the hegemony. They were about to discover that Earth had never been as helpless as everyone believed. The war was about to change in ways that no one could imagine. Captain Lee Tae-jin had never seen anything like the inside of Prometheus Station. The corridors were wide and clean, with soft lighting that didn't hurt his eyes. Everything was designed for humans, not adapted from alien architecture. As he walked beside Admiral Song Hye-jin, he couldn't stop staring at the crew members they passed. These people looked different from the colonists he knew. They were taller, stronger, and moved with a confidence that Lee had never seen in humans under hegemony rule. Their uniforms were dark blue with silver trim, nothing like the makeshift gear the Resistance wore. You have questions, Song said as they entered a lift that moved silently upward. A few thousand, Lee replied, starting with how this place exists and ending with why no one told us about it. Song was quiet for a moment. She was probably 40, years old with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. What do you know about Earth's fall? The same thing everyone knows. The hegemony attacked Earth 150 years ago. Most of humanity was killed by a plague. The survivors were scattered to colony worlds as slaves. That's what the hegemony believes. It's what we wanted them to believe. The lift opened onto a vast chamber with windows that looked out into space. Lee could see dozens of ships docked to the station, all of them using the same unknown design. Beyond them, partially hidden behind an asteroid, was the curved edge of a planet. Is that? Lee started to ask. Earth, Song finished. Population 7 billion and growing. We've been awake for 6 months now. Lee felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. Awake? The plague was real, Captain Lee, but it wasn't a disease. It was a medical treatment that put 90% of Earth's population into suspended sleep. They've been hibernating while a skeleton crew prepared for this day. Song led him to a viewing area where they could see the planet clearly. Earth looked just like the pictures in the old history books, blue and green and beautiful. But now Lee could see that it was covered with structures he didn't recognize. Massive installations that stretched from the surface into orbit. For 150 years we've been building, Song explained. We studied every piece of hegemony technology we could get our hands on. We learned their weaknesses, and we improved on their designs in ways they never thought possible. A new voice joined the conversation. The improvements were necessary. The hegemony's technology is impressive, but it has fundamental flaws. Lee turned to see a man in a white lab coat approaching them. He was older than Song, with gray hair and tired eyes. Dr. Han Yu-jin, the man introduced himself. Lead scientist of the Prometheus project. What kind of flaws? Lee asked. Han smiled. They never solved faster-than-light communication. Every message has to travel through hyperspace relays, which creates delays and weak points. They never developed personal shielding technology. Their weapons are powerful but inefficient, and most importantly, they never learned to think beyond their own limitations. Meaning, they assume that every species will develop technology the same way they did. They never considered that humans might find completely different solutions to the same problems. Song gestured toward the window. As they watched, a new ship undocked from the station. It was smaller than the battleships Lee had seen, but there was something different about the way it moved. It didn't follow the smooth curves that hegemony ships used. Instead, it seemed to fold space around itself, jumping from point to point in ways that hurt to watch. That's a Terran scout ship, Song said. It uses a drive system that the hegemony thinks is impossible. Their physics says you can't teleport matter through folded space. They're wrong. Lee stared at the ship until it disappeared entirely. How many ships do you have? Enough, Han replied, but ships aren't our greatest advantage. Then what is? Information. We've been monitoring every hegemony communication for 150 years. We know about their internal politics, their military strategies, their trade routes, their weaknesses. We know about the void wraiths. Lee's head snapped toward Han. You know what they are? We know what they were supposed to be. The hegemony created them as a biological weapon to use against a species called the Keth Mori in the Rim territories. The project was called Living Death, machines that could rewrite organic matter from the inside out. But something went wrong, Song continued. The weapons evolved beyond their programming. Instead of just killing the target species, they started converting everything they touched. The hegemony lost control of them completely. Lee felt sick. They created those things? They did. And now the wraiths are spreading toward the core worlds. The hegemony is trying to contain them, but their technology isn't advanced enough. Only we have the tools to stop them. Han pulled out a small device that projected a holographic map of the galaxy. Red areas showed wraith infections spreading like cancer toward the center. Blue areas showed human uprisings led by Admiral Kim's forces. And at the very core, yellow areas marked the remaining hegemony strongholds. The situation is complex, Han said. We need to coordinate with the resistance fleets, stop the wraith infection, and prevent the hegemony from doing something desperate. Desperate. How? Lee asked. Song and Han exchanged glances. Our intelligence suggests they have a final option, something called the Omega Protocol. If they can't win, they might try to destroy the galaxy rather than let anyone else have it. The magnitude of what they were telling him hit Lee like a physical blow. This wasn't just a slave rebellion anymore, this was a fight for the survival of all life in the galaxy. Why tell me this? Lee asked. I'm just a fighter pilot. Because you're going to help us contact Admiral Kim, Song replied. We need to coordinate our efforts. The resistance has been doing good work, but they're fighting with captured equipment and limited information. It's time to change that. Han activated another hologram, this one showing a ship design that made Lee's eyes widen. It was huge, easily 5 times larger than anything in Kim's fleet. The hull bristled with weapons that Lee couldn't identify, and the power readings displayed alongside it were beyond anything he had ever seen. What is that? Lee whispered. The TDF Indomitable, Song said. The first of the new Terran battleships. I command her. When do we leave? We don't. You do. Song handed him a data chip. This contains communication codes and rendezvous coordinates. Take your fighter back to Admiral Kim. Tell him that Earth is ready to join the fight. But Captain Lee, make sure he understands something very important. What? This isn't his rebellion anymore. This is humanity's war, and we intend to win. As Lee made his way back to his fighter, his mind raced with everything he had learned. Earth wasn't dead. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for over a century. And now they were ready to show the galaxy what humans could really do when they stopped hiding and started fighting. He thought about Admiral Kim and the other resistance leaders, fighting their desperate battles with salvaged ships and hope. They had been brave beyond measure, keeping the dream of freedom alive when everything seemed hopeless. But they had never imagined that hope was building fleets in secret, developing weapons that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The war was about to change, and Lee had a feeling that the hegemony had no idea what was coming for them. Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood in the command center of his flagship, staring at the data chip that Captain Lee had brought him. The information it contained was impossible to believe, yet the evidence was right in front of him. Earth was alive. Humanity had been preparing for war for over a century, and they were about to get help beyond their wildest dreams. "Sir, long-range sensors are picking up something big coming out of hyperspace," Commander Yoon Ji-woo reported from her station. Kim looked up at the main display. The resistance fleet was gathered in the Kepler Nebula, preparing to attack a major hegemony supply depot. 300 ships, the largest force humans had ever assembled. It had taken years of careful planning and countless small victories to build this fleet. "What kind of big?" Kim asked. "I don't know, sir. The computer can't classify it. The power readings are off the charts." A new contact appeared on the tactical display. It was massive, larger than anything Kim had ever seen. As the ship cleared the hyperspace distortion, he got his first clear look at it. The TDF Indomitable was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Its hull was a dark gray that seemed to absorb light, and blue energy crackling along its edges made it look like a living thing. Weapon ports lined its sides, each one larger than the main guns on Kim's battleship. It was 3 kilometers long and moved through space with impossible grace for something so large. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," the communications officer reported. "Put it through." A woman's face appeared on the main screen. She wore a uniform Kim had never seen before, dark blue with silver trim. Her eyes were sharp and confident, the look of someone who had never known defeat. "Admiral Kim, this is Admiral Song Hae-jin of the Terran Defense Force. I believe Captain Lee delivered our message." Kim found his voice. "Admiral Song, yes, we received your message. I have to admit we're all a little overwhelmed by the implications." Song smiled. "I understand. We've had a century and a half to get used to the idea. You've had a few days. But Admiral Kim, we don't have time for long explanations. The hegemony depot you're planning to attack is defended by 200 ships, including a dreadnought. Your current force would suffer heavy casualties." "We know the risks," Kim replied, "but we need those supplies." "You'll have them, but let us handle the depot. We have questions for you, Admiral, about the Void Wraiths." Kim's expression darkened. "What do you want to know?" "Dr. Park Somi's research has been forwarded to our scientists. Her discovery about the nanomachines in the infected tissue is crucial. We need her expertise." Kim turned to look at Dr. Park, who was standing near the science station. She stepped forward, her face pale but determined. "Admiral Song, this is Dr. Park. What did your people find?" Song's image shifted as another person joined the transmission. An older man in a lab coat appeared beside her. "Dr. Park, I'm Dr. Han Yu-jin. We've reviewed your work and we think you're right about the Void Wraiths being artificial. But there's something else. The nanomachines you found aren't just converting organic matter. They're learning from it." Park's eyes widened. "Learning? How?" "Each infection makes the Wraiths smarter, more adaptable. They're not just spreading randomly anymore. They're developing strategy, planning their attacks, and our long-range probes suggest they're heading for the galactic core." Kim felt a chill run down his spine. "How long do we have?" 6 months, maybe less, before they reach the inner systems," Han replied. "But that's not our immediate problem." Song took control of the conversation again. "Admiral Kim, we need to end this war quickly. The hegemony is desperate, and desperate enemies do unpredictable things. Our intelligence suggests they might activate something called the Omega Protocol rather than surrender." "What's the Omega Protocol?" Kim asked. "A galaxy-scale weapon. If they use it, everyone dies. Human, alien, wraith, everyone. The command center fell silent. Kim looked around at his officers, seeing his own shock reflected in their faces. They had thought they were fighting for human freedom. Now they were fighting for the survival of all life. "What do you need from us?" Kim asked finally. "Coordination. We're going to hit multiple hegemony strongholds simultaneously. Fast, overwhelming strikes to prevent them from regrouping or activating their doomsday weapon. Are you willing to work with us?" Kim didn't hesitate. "Yes." "Good. Stand by for tactical data upload." The Resistance fleet's computers suddenly came, alive with new information. Star charts, ship configurations, weapon specifications, and battle plans flowed across every screen. Kim watched in amazement as his people tried to process it all. "Sir," Yoon called out, "they're sharing technology, specs with us. These weapon upgrades, they could increase our firepower by 300%. And their shield technology is unlike anything I've seen," added the chief engineer. "It's not just deflecting energy, it's redirecting it back at the attacker." Song's voice drew Kim's attention back to the main screen. "Admiral, we're going to demonstrate what we can do. Please observe and learn." The Indomitable moved toward the hegemony depot with surprising speed. The depot's defenders immediately responded, launching fighters and powering up their defensive arrays. 200 ships moved to intercept the single Terran Battleship. Kim watched in fascination as the battle unfolded. The hegemony ships opened fire first, their weapons lighting up space with brilliant energy beams. The attack struck the Indomitable's shields and simply disappeared, absorbed without any visible effect. Then the Terran ship returned fire. Kim had never seen weapons like these. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, the Indomitable's guns seemed to tear holes in space itself. Hegemony ships simply ceased to exist, vanishing as if they had never been there. Others found themselves frozen in place as their engines failed and their systems shut down. "What kind of weapons are those?" Kim whispered. "Spacefold cannons," Song explained over the comm. "They create dimensional rifts that displace matter, and electromagnetic pulse generators that can shut down any system based on hegemony technology." The battle lasted 12 minutes. When it was over, the entire hegemony force had been destroyed or disabled. The depot itself was intact but defenseless. The Indomitable hadn't taken a single hit that caused any damage. "Admiral Kim," Song said, "the depot is yours. But we need to talk about what comes next." Kim stared at the tactical display, trying to process what he had just witnessed. One ship had defeated a force that would have required his entire fleet to overcome, and it had done so without breaking a sweat. "Admiral Song, how many ships like yours does Earth have?" "Enough. But Admiral, firepower isn't our greatest advantage. Information is. We know where every major hegemony installation is located. We know their defensive capabilities. We know which of their leaders are desperate enough to choose mutual destruction over defeat. And we know how to stop the void. Wraiths," Han added. "But it's going to require cooperation from every free human in the galaxy. This is bigger than any one fleet or any one world." Kim looked around his command center one more time. His people were staring at him, waiting for his decision. They had followed him this far, trusted his judgment through countless battles. Now he had to decide whether to trust these newcomers who claimed to represent Earth itself. But really, there was no choice. The alternative was the extinction of everything they had fought to protect. "What do you need us to do?" Kim asked. Song smiled. "Help us save the galaxy, Admiral, and maybe, if we're very lucky, teach the rest of the universe what it means to be human." As the two fleets began to coordinate their efforts, Kim couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The war between humans and the hegemony was ending, but the real fight was just beginning. The war room on Earth buzzed with activity as representatives from across the galaxy gathered around the massive holographic display. General Choi Min-ho stood at the center, coordinating what had become the largest military operation in galactic history. 3 separate threats demanded attention: the remaining hegemony forces, the advancing void wraiths, and the mysterious Omega Protocol that could destroy everything. "Status report," Choi commanded. Admiral Kim Dae-ho's image appeared in the hologram. speaking from his flagship near the Vega system. Sector 7 is secure. The hegemony garrison surrendered without a fight. Most of their commanders are accepting our amnesty offer. Good. Admiral Song? Song Hyejin's image joined the display from the bridge of the Indomitable. The core fleet is moving toward Nexus Prime. Intelligence suggests the hegemony leadership is preparing something big. We need to move fast. Dr. Park Somi stepped forward from her position near the science station. General, we have a problem with the Void Wraiths. They're not just spreading randomly anymore. They're showing signs of coordinated behavior, like they're being controlled by something. Choi frowned. Controlled by what? We think there's a central intelligence directing them, something that evolved from the original programming. If we could find it and destroy it, the rest of the Wraiths might become manageable. Commander Yoon, Jiwoo, who had been working with alien military leaders, added her voice to the discussion. Sir, I've been talking with the Kelrath Republic and the Zephyrian Council. They're willing to provide ships and troops, but they want assurances that humans won't just replace the hegemony as the new rulers. What did you tell them? Choi asked. The truth. That we don't want to rule anyone. We just want to survive what's coming. The display shifted to show the galactic situation. Red zones marked void wraith infections, now covering nearly a quarter of the galaxy. Blue zones showed human-controlled space, expanding rapidly as more worlds were liberated. Yellow zones marked the remaining hegemony strongholds, shrinking every day. And at the very center, pulsing with an ominous orange light, was Nexus Prime. Dr. Han Yu-jin joined the group, carrying a data pad with grim news. General, we've decoded more information about the Omega Protocol. It's worse than we thought. How much worse? It's not just a weapon, it's a transformation device. The hegemony plans to convert the galactic core into a massive black hole generator. The process would take 1,000 years to complete, giving them time to escape to another galaxy. But it would kill everyone else, Park said quietly. Eventually, yes, every star system would be consumed. Choi stared at the display, watching the patterns of war and destruction spreading across their galaxy. Humanity had gone from slaves to liberators in a matter of months, but the cost was becoming clear. They weren't just fighting for freedom anymore. They were fighting for existence itself. Dr. Han, what do we need to stop the Omega Protocol? Someone would have to reach the galactic core and shut it down from the inside. But the process requires integration with the core's quantum field. Whoever does it wouldn't survive, Choi finished. No, sir, they wouldn't. A new voice joined the conversation. Captain Lee Tae-jin appeared on the display, but his image was distorted and strange. His skin had a pale metallic sheen, and his eyes glowed with an unnatural blue light. Captain Lee? Song asked with concern in her voice. Still me, Admiral. Mostly. Lee's voice carried an electronic undertone that hadn't been there before. The Void Hunter modification is working. We've successfully destroyed 3 Wraith Hive ships. But the transformation is significant. Lee and his volunteer crews had undergone genetic modification to become living weapons against the Void Wraiths. The process had given them the ability to interface directly with Wraith technology and resist their conversion nanomachines, but at a terrible cost. They were no longer entirely human. Are you in pain? Dr. Han asked. No, that's part of the problem. We don't feel much of anything anymore, but we can sense the Wraiths in ways normal humans can't. We know where the central intelligence is located. The display zoomed in on a section of the Rim territories, showing a massive structure that defied description. It looked like a combination of spacecraft and living organism, with tendrils stretching across multiple star systems. That's the Void Mother, Lee explained. It's coordinating all the other Wraiths. If we can destroy it, the rest will become mindless again. How do we reach it? Kim asked. We don't. Only the Void Hunters can get close enough. The area is saturated with conversion nanomachines. Normal humans would be transformed before they could fire a shot. Choi studied the tactical situation. They had the most advanced fleet in galactic history, armies of humans and aliens working together, and technology that seemed like magic. but they were still facing impossible choices. Admiral Song, how long until you reach Nexus Prime? 18 hours, General. Admiral Kim, can your forces handle the outer hegemony worlds without Terran support? Yes, sir. Most of them are surrendering. Anyway, the fight has gone out of them. Captain Lee, how many Void Hunters do you have? 47 ships, all volunteers. It's enough to reach the Void Mother, but we probably won't make it back. Choi looked around at the faces on the display. These people had already sacrificed so much. Kim and his rebels had fought for years with captured ships and desperate hope. Song had spent her entire life preparing for a war she wasn't sure she'd live to see. Park had devoted herself to understanding alien biology in ways that few humans could. Lee had volunteered to become something that was barely human anymore, and now they were asking for more. There's something else, Han said quietly. Our analysis suggests that the Omega Protocol activation might actually attract the Void Wraiths. The energy signature is similar to their feeding patterns. So if the hegemony activates it, Park began, the Wraiths would converge on the galactic core. The two threats would combine into something even worse. Yoon spoke up from her position. General, the alien fleets are asking for orders. They want to know what the plan is. Choi made his decision. We split our forces. Admiral Song takes the core fleet to Nexus Prime and stops the Omega Protocol. Admiral Kim coordinates with our alien allies to contain the remaining hegemony forces. Captain Lee leads the Void Hunters against the Void Mother, and we pray that we can pull off 3 impossible missions at the same time. Sir, Song said, what if we can't stop all 3 threats? Then we make sure we stop the ones that matter most. The hegemony can be defeated, the Void Wraiths can be contained, but if the Omega Protocol activates, none of that matters. Lee's distorted image flickered as he prepared to cut the transmission. General, there's something you should know about the modifications. They're spreading. Every day we become a little less human and a little more like the technology we're fighting. If we survive this war, you'll have a place in whatever comes next, Choi promised. Human or not, you're still our people. As the various commanders signed off to prepare for their missions, Choi remained in the war room, staring at the galactic display. In a matter of months, humanity had gone from scattered slaves to the galaxy's greatest hope for survival, but the cost was getting higher every day. He thought about the children on New Terra, playing together regardless of their species. He thought about the humans who had spent 150 years in hibernation, trusting their descendants to wake them when the time was right. He thought about all the beings across the galaxy who were counting on them to succeed. The next 24 hours would determine whether there would be a galaxy left to save. The space around Nexus Prime was filled with the largest fleet battle in galactic history. Admiral Song Hye-jin watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as hundreds of ships from dozens of species fought against the hegemony's final defenders. The planet below was burning as Terran assault forces fought their way toward the core facilities where the Omega Protocol waited. Admiral, we've broken through the outer defense grid, reported her tactical officer. The path to the planetary surface is clear. Song nodded, but her attention was divided between 3 different battles happening across the galaxy. Her fleet was winning here at Nexus Prime, but reports from the other fronts were mixed. Communication from Captain Lee, her communications officer announced. Lee's transformed face appeared on the screen, more machine than human now. The blue glow in his eyes had grown stronger, and metallic patterns covered most of his skin. Behind him, the bridge of his ship showed similar changes in his crew. Admiral, we've reached the Void Mother. The creature is massive beyond belief. It's the size of a small moon, and it's surrounded by thousands of Wraith ships. Can you get through? Song asked. We're going to try. But Admiral, the modifications are accelerating. My crew and I probably won't survive this, even if we succeed. The technology is consuming us from the inside. Song felt her heart clench. Lee had been one of the first to volunteer for the Void Hunter program, knowing what it would cost him. Captain, you don't have to do this. We can find another way. No, Admiral. This is what we became for. If we don't stop the Void Mother now, it will reach the core worlds in days. Lee's voice carried an electronic distortion that was getting stronger. Tell Admiral Kim and General Choi that it's been an honor. The transmission cut out as Lee's force engaged the Wraiths in the Rim territories. Admiral Song, came another voice over the comm. Admiral Kim appeared on a secondary screen, speaking from orbit around a hegemony world. Most of the outer territories have surrendered. The alien fleets performed better than expected, but we're getting reports of hegemony, ships heading for Nexus Prime. They're not trying to defend the planet. They're trying to reach it, Song understood immediately. They're making a final push to activate the Omega Protocol. All ships, concentrate fire on incoming hegemony vessels. Don't let any of them through. The battle intensified as the last hegemony loyalists threw themselves at the combined human-alien fleet. These weren't desperate defenders fighting for their homes. These were true believers who would rather see the galaxy die than see humanity inherit the hegemony's empire. On the planet's surface, Dr. Park Somi led a team of scientists through the ruins of the hegemony's capital city. They had located the Omega Protocol facility, but reaching it required fighting through layers of automated defenses. The quantum field generators are just ahead, Park said, checking her scanner. But there are energy readings I don't recognize. Dr. Han Yu-jin, who was coordinating the mission from Earth, spoke through their comm system. Dr. Park, our analysis suggests the Omega Protocol has already begun the activation sequence. You need to reach the core chamber immediately. Park's team rushed through the final security barriers, using Terran technology to overwhelm systems that had been thought impregnable. When they finally reached the core chamber, what they found was beyond their worst fears. The room was enormous, filled with machinery that hurt to look at directly. At the center, a swirling vortex of energy was growing larger by the minute, but that wasn't the worst part. Supreme Chancellor Vexithera was there, along with his most loyal followers, all of them connected to the machinery by cables that pulsed with dark energy. You're too late, humans, Vexithera said without turning around. His voice echoed strangely in the chamber. The transformation has begun. In 1100 years, every star in this galaxy will feed the void, and we will be far away, seeding new worlds with proper civilization. You're going to kill billions of innocent beings, Park said, raising her weapon. Billions of inferiors who never deserved to exist in the first place. Vexithara finally turned, and Park gasped. The hegemony leader was no longer entirely organic. Machinery had been integrated into his body, just like the Void Wraiths, but with a different purpose. The galaxy belongs to its rightful rulers. If we cannot have it, no one can. The firefight was brief but intense. Park's team had the advantage of surprise and superior weapons, but Vexithara and his followers had merged with the facility's defenses. Energy beams and projectiles filled the air as both sides fought for control of the galaxy's future. When the shooting stopped, Vexithara was dead, but the Omega Protocol was still running. The energy vortex had grown large enough to start affecting local space-time. Dr. Han, Park called over her comm. The activation is too far along. I can't shut it down from here. You have to, Dr. Park. The process is starting to attract the Void Wraiths. Our long-range sensors show them changing course toward the galactic core. Park studied the machinery, trying to understand its function. The hegemony had built something that could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe, but they had done it without really understanding what they were dealing with. There might be a way, she said finally. But someone would have to interface directly with the quantum field. The process would merge their consciousness with the galactic core itself. What would happen to them? Han asked quietly. They would become part of the galaxy's fundamental structure. Not dead exactly, but no longer human in any meaningful sense. Before anyone could object, Park began connecting herself to the machinery. Dr. Park, no. Han's voice came through the comm. There's no choice, Park replied, feeling the energy begin to flow through her body. The alternative is extinction, for everyone. As Park merged with the quantum field, her consciousness expanded beyond anything she had ever imagined. She could feel every star, every planet, every living being in the galaxy. The Omega Protocol wasn't just a weapon. It was a crude attempt to control forces that were already part of the galaxy's natural structure. Instead of stopping the process, Park redirected it. The energy that would have created a cascade of destruction became a healing force, repairing damage caused by millennia of war and exploitation. The void wraiths, drawn by the massive energy signature, found themselves transformed back into their original forms as the nanomachines that controlled them were neutralized. Across the galaxy, Admiral Kim watched in amazement as the remaining hegemony forces simply stopped fighting. Their leaders were dead, their homeworld was in human hands, and their doomsday weapon had been turned into something that was actually helping the galaxy heal. Captain Lee, in the final moments before his transformation became complete, felt the Void Mother die as the quantum wave reached the rim territories. The massive creature that had coordinated the Wraiths simply dissolved, its artificial intelligence unable to survive the restoration of natural order. Admiral Song, standing on the bridge of the Indomitable as it orbited the now peaceful Nexus, Prime opened a communication channel to all human forces. "This is Admiral Song to all fleet commanders. The war is over. Repeat, the war is over." 10 years later, Commander Yoon Ji-woo stood in the observation deck of New Terra Station, watching children from a dozen different species play together in the recreation areas below. The station was built from materials salvaged from hegemony warships, but its design was entirely human, open, welcoming, and designed for cooperation rather than domination. The galaxy had changed dramatically since the end of the war. The hegemony's territories had been reorganized into the Galactic Cooperative, with Earth serving as a mediating force rather than a ruling power. The former slave species had been given their freedom and the technology to rebuild their civilizations. Admiral Kim, now serving as the Cooperative's military coordinator, joined Yoon at the observation window. "The Kelrath delegation is arriving tomorrow," he said. "They want to discuss opening new trade routes through the former Wraith territories." "Any problems with cleanup operations in that sector?" Yoon asked. "A few isolated pockets of Wraith technology, but nothing the Void Hunter Corps can't handle." The Void Hunter Corps was made up of volunteers who had undergone the same modifications as Captain Lee. They were no longer entirely human, but they had found a new purpose, protecting the galaxy from threats that normal people couldn't handle. Lee himself had become their leader, accepting his transformation as the price of keeping others safe. "Have you heard from Dr. Park recently?" Kim asked. Yoon smiled. "She sends messages through the quantum communication network. She's different now, but she's still Dr. Park. She says she can feel the galaxy healing and that the process will continue for generations." Park's sacrifice had saved the galaxy, but it had also changed her into something beyond human understanding. She existed now as part of the galaxy's fundamental structure, helping to maintain the balance between creation and destruction that kept billions of worlds inhabitable. And Admiral Song? Still out there in the Indomitable, exploring the far reaches of the galaxy. She says there are other threats beyond our borders, things that might require our attention eventually. Kim nodded. Humanity had gone from slaves to guardians in less than a decade, but the responsibilities